Well, hi there, it's Jennifer. Welcome to my channel. This is going to be the first video in a 13-week video series where I am sharing my experience using the 10 glucose lowering hacks by author and biochemist Jessie Inchauspe. She is the author of 2 books. She is the author, her first book is Glucose Revolution. This was a global bestseller. And at the end of this video, I am going to be using one of her hacks. I prepared 2 breakfasts, one that I had recorded the other day, one that I recorded this morning. One of the glucose hacks is to start your day with a savory breakfast. And while you are watching that unfold, I am going to read just different excerpts from her books about lowering our glucose and why that's so important. It's been a journey for me, and how I even learned about Jessie Inchauspe was after going to see my second dietitian. I saw her in 2024, and we had tried a couple of different eating plans. They were not successful until she pointed me to Jessie Inchauspe and to use her 10 hacks for lowering blood sugar. Also, while you watch the meals today, and I'm not a chef either, by the way, my family, we have a ton of allergies and food intolerances, and everyone's allergies and intolerances some are similar, but a lot of them are different. We have people who have anaphylaxis reactions to a variety of foods. So my cooking is just very simple. And it's also changed over the years because I thought for sure that I had a gluten intolerance. I don't know if I do. I do not have celiac. I've been tested for it twice. I used to be able to eat breads and pastas, well, my entire life. It wasn't until perimenopause, and I'm not technically officially in menopause, but I am right there. But I thought it was a digestive change within me because of my lowering estrogen, and that was causing my dietary issues. But as time has gone on and I have had various symptoms, and talking to my family practice doctor, she's like, actually, I don't think you are experiencing gluten intolerance. She's said to me that she thought that I was experiencing an inflammatory response as a result of spiking glucose levels in my body, which gave me hope because I'm 53 years old, so I have spent most of my life eating breads and pastas, but obviously I need to change. Now, the history of it all. I probably have had struggles with my sugars for longer than what I realized, but specifically in the last 5 years, my toe keeps wanting to dip into the pre-diabetic pool. I'll get blood work done, and my A1C levels will be just above that pre-diabetes, but in the pre-diabetes pool. And then I'll be able to get it down like to just under it, and then it'll go back up, and then I try to get it down underneath, and then it'll go back up. That has been a cycle that has been going on now for the last 5 years. As of most recently, I had my blood work done in August of 2024, and my A1C levels were just below the pre-diabetes. Well, then in December, I went to have blood work done again, and my A1C was at 5.7, so I was back in the pre-diabetic pool. It's just been this yo-yoing, and one thing that my family practice doctor has said to me, she's like, Jennifer, it just might be that it's genetic. Now, my mom has 3 sisters. My mother has struggled with pre-diabetes, and one sister has full-on adult onset diabetes, and another one also had it as well, but she's been she passed away years ago, but she had it. And then my other aunt as well dips in and out of pre-diabetes. So is it just hormones? Is it just age? Is it genetic? I don't know. My doctor has offered me the various types of medications out there, the injectables, to help manage blood sugar and weight loss. I struggle to lose a pound, but back to the medications. And of course, there's nothing wrong with those medications. There does seem to be a bit of a stigma around those. They obviously do work and they obviously do help people. Honestly, for me though, the last thing I want to do is get on another medication. Because I am allergic to earth, I already take so much allergy medication. I take a nightly allergy medication. I have an inhaler. I have eye drops. I have nasal spray. I have a asthma medication. And that's just to survive. Now, springtime's coming. Not even all those medications will fully hold back my histamine responses to foods or environments, especially during springtime. So because I already am on so many medications already, the last thing I want to do is get on another medication to manage something. So I am trying very hard, and now I am really officially committed because I have more knowledge today than I did a year ago even. And so that's been huge. Recognizing for me that it's my blood sugar and A1C numbers that are causing a lot of my health issues and unwanted side effects. As this series unfolds, I will share those various things. That way I don't stick too much in a video. But in fact, this video series was a little bit of a, well, no, not a little bit. This video series was a spontaneous decision to share on my YouTube channel. And I was thinking to myself that, you know, if I am struggling with this, you might be struggling with this as well. So why don't I just document it? I will continue to share more information as the weeks go on. But I already have been, the last couple of weeks, I officially put myself on a challenge. And originally it was just going to be for 30 days. I was going to start it in March, or 31 days, because there's 31 days in March. I was going to do it for 31 days in March, using the 10 glucose hacks that can be found in Jessie's second book. Now, her first book talks about why glucose spikes are so detrimental to our bodies. In fact, here, the life-changing power of balancing your blood sugar, because of all of the symptoms and the damage that can happen to your body with elevated blood sugar, and then having significant blood sugar spikes, and then plummeting blood sugar, and then spikes, and it does so much damage to your body. Well, this was a global bestseller. People would write to her and say, do you do home visits? Could you come move in with me and help me figure out how to lower my blood sugar? How do I do it? Can you show me? So she wrote this book as a response. And I learned about her through my dietitian. She also has an Instagram page with a couple million followers. I'm not on Instagram very often, but when my dietitian recommended her to me, she said, go look, and because I have my hair and everything, she's like, she's very fashionable. You'll probably really love her. And she is very, very fashionable. She has amazing content also on YouTube. And you could go watch her on YouTube and start to learn about these hacks. And she just breaks all of the science down in a way that it is digestible and easily understood. And it's quite fascinating. Now, I have had success using her 10 hacks. Last year, I was part of a 6-month coaching program with Mel Robbins, if you know who she is. One of there were 3 projects throughout this coaching program. The last 30-day project, I decided, in fact, it was going to be start a YouTube channel, but I was putting it off again. I'm a fairly new YouTuber. And I was like, I'll just put off starting YouTube and I'll do this glucose hacks. What I did was I started watching her YouTube videos. I ordered her books. I started researching, and then I decided, why don't I give myself a challenge, and why don't I do the 10 glucose hacks for 30 days? That'll be my project. And technically there's really 6 active ones, and I'll read you what the hacks are. This was from my 30-day challenge that I did with Mel Robbins, and I marked off the days, and then what I did was I wrote down the hacks that I used per day, per meal, and I did that for 30 days, and I was able to release weight, which was a miracle because of my A1C numbers and my blood sugar. And also something I wanted to share too, because I've mentioned how I dip in and out of the pre-diabetic pool. Also, my blood sugar levels, every time that I've had my blood work done, I was looking on my charts last night, looking over the last 5 years, and my blood glucose has trended upward. And it was the highest it has been just at the end of 2024. So I'm like, shoot, I have got to get serious. And I'm starting to put everything together now and recognizing that it is a blood sugar issue for me, which is why when I would try a lot of different ways of eating, I would not have success. Working out, I love to work out. I've never lost weight working out. I never lose weight when I get sick, when I've had surgeries, and even trying diets. But I'll get into all that stuff later. And as this series unfolds, I'll share more of my experience. But let me read you what the hacks are. Then I'm going to show you 2 of my savory breakfasts that I made earlier. And I will also voice over those and share some information from Jessie's book about this. But so the main 6, there's 6 main active habits that you can use per meal. The first one is, so hack number 1 is the order. And so she says you can lower your blood sugar glucose spikes by up to 75% just by changing the order in which you eat foods. So she suggests eat veggies first, because when you eat vegetables first, it creates a mesh structure in your intestines, which helps slow down absorption of the glucose. Then, so you eat your veggies first, then you eat your proteins and fats, then you eat your starches and sugars. So that's one hack, the order. Hack number, I just had hack number 1, the order. Hack number 2 was have a veggie starter. When my dietitian first introduced me to Jessie, and I was struggling, and I'm gonna go into all of that in a different video. That way this one is not so long, but I will share with you my first experience. That'll be next week's video. The first experience I had with a dietitian, it was not successful at all. Then getting to know this dietitian, and we tried a way of eating for me that was horrible, but that's because I was spiking too much with my glucose. Until we found this has been the key. And that was her first tip to me, was have a veggie starter with your meal. Because once again, that will, because of the insoluble fiber, it will create a mesh in your intestines, which reduces the amount of glucose absorption so you don't spike so high. Now, our blood glucose levels will spike every time we eat, but the idea is that you don't want to have them like so extreme. You want to have them be just kind of, not as extreme in the highs and lows, more balanced. Hack number 3 is vinegar. So you take a tablespoon of vinegar, you dilute it in water a little bit before you're going to eat, and the acetic acid molecule. Okay, hold on. Let me read it right. Okay. 1 tablespoon of vinegar in a tall glass of water, or as a dressing before a meal. You can lower your blood glucose spikes by up to 30%, which is impressive. The molecule acetic acid slows down the breakdown of starch into glucose, and it encourages muscles to uptake more glucose as it arrives into your bloodstream. and that can help. I have a note here that it can help with PCOS cravings. Always dilute the vinegar. Use a straw to protect your enamel of your teeth, and it's safe to have several times a day with water. So the order: veggie starter, vinegar, okay? And hack number 4, have a savory breakfast. That's when I'm going to show you what I did, my 2 savory breakfasts that I've had. I'm also trying to specifically eat vegetables as well. So you'll see in my breakfast that I'll share with you, I use the veggie starter. I have a veggie starter, and then I go into my protein and fats, and I did not have any starch or sugars at all in both of those breakfasts. I had coffee in one of them, but I used whipping cream, which has 0 sugar. So savory breakfast, that's a hack. Hack number 5, movement for 10 minutes. And she goes on, I don't know if I have it here. I think I've got it in one of these books. I've heard her say it in an interview, that it's something about the contracting of your calf muscles specifically. So she said for movement, she's like, you could get up and clean your kitchen, do your dishes, move around for 10 minutes. It's the contracting of the calf muscles specifically that helps with the glucose. And I'll read it more specifically so that way I'm not just winging it like I am right now. So she says, our muscles specifically are very happy to use glucose to contract. Use your muscles for 10 minutes after a meal. As they contract, the muscles will soak up glucose from the bloodstream to power themselves, and as a result, the glucose won't accumulate as much in the bloodstream, but rather will be used for energy directly. Do that within an hour after a meal. Get up and move for 10 minutes. So that's really reasonable, isn't it? That's something also too that I loved about these hacks, was it's so reasonable. Like these are so doable. Have a savory breakfast. Okay, that's easy. Have a veggie starter. All right. Get up and move for 10 minutes. Okay. Now the vinegar may not be, oh, and I want to show you something too after, actually, in fact, let me get it right now, that she uses. This is not a hack, but because she's a biochemist, I've been ordering her anti-spike formula, and it's made up of 4 different types of, I have to like really look at it, of extracts that lower the blood glucose spikes up to 40%. You take it about a minute, like a minute to 20 minutes, I think it is, before a meal of your highest starchy meal. This is not a hack, but you can buy that from her. But so for some people, the vinegar, like my husband, he tries to do the vinegar and he is gagging. I can do the vinegar. I like to use the apple cider vinegar with the mother, put a tablespoon in there, and I just chug it down. But you know what? I'm really good at that because I take 30 grams of collagen every morning that I dissolve in water. I do not put it near my coffee or in a smoothie. I dissolve it, and then I can chug that thing fast. I've become an expert because I cannot stand the smell or taste of collagen, and I get it in as fast as humanly possible, and then I chase it with my coffee, and that's the only way. So I could drink a vinegar. I like to put it in, I like to put my vinegar in lukewarm water. I feel like it's just easier to get down, and you could just get it down really quick. So vinegar is an option. Then also food combining is a hack. Don't leave your foods naked. That's what she calls it. Protein, fat, or fiber. Put clothing on your carbs in this way. You still have to watch fat to avoid other consequences. Like she talks about in her book about good and bad fats. Like you don't want to be pumping your body full of saturated fat. So you do have to be mindful of the amount of fat because it is calorific. And there is the principle of burning. If you don't burn all that you're taking in, you will put weight on. There is that principle, but to also watch the types of fats you have. So don't leave your foods naked. And she talks more about that in detail in her books. So those are the 6 active hacks that you would use for your meals. Then she has the other hacks that are more just, I think, like mental hacks. One was don't count calories, which is great. And in fact, that's something that my dietitian, I can't wait to talk more about my dietitian. I loved her philosophy. She worked at an eating disorder clinic and does counseling. So her philosophy to body health and in the way that we care for our body, making sure that it's motivated out of love and gentleness and appropriateness, has been amazing. My first dietitian was completely the opposite, and that will be for another time. So don't count calories. You're just using these hacks. That's it. Then she also says sugar is sugar. And she did in her book talk about like monk sugar and stevia extract does not cause the blood sugar to spike as much, or that glucose, but it still does spike. But she does say that sugar, like honey and maple syrup are not better than table sugar. Your body looks at it the same. So sugar, don't count calories. And if you have to have a snack, go savory. Avoid the sweet. And another thing she talks about too, which I love, and if you watch any of her interviews or you go to her YouTube channel or you check her out on Instagram, I just love the way she talks. She's really practical. She's like, you're going to want a chocolate cake. She's like, on my birthday, I'm going to want to eat a chocolate cake or whatever. And there's ways that you can do it. And she's like, sugar is not a food group. And I was guilty of this, and maybe you've been guilty of it too. I have. She said that sugar is not a food group, that we need to have it as dessert. So if you want to have your chocolate cake, you want to have your ice cream, my favorite sweet, maybe I'll save that, but no, I'll just share it. So I love chocolate, and I love to take Hershey Kisses, and lately I've got soy nut butter, because I have children who are deathly allergic to peanut butter. I have children who are allergic to soy also, by the way, but I can eat soy nut butter, and nobody's anaphylaxis to soy. I like to take Hershey Kisses that I keep in the refrigerator. I like to dip them in the soy nut butter. I used to, years ago, eat Reese's peanut butter cups, but I don't anymore because of the severe reaction, my children. But also I am allergic to peanuts. Technically, I'm just not anaphylaxis. Anyway, that is a big treat. But if you're gonna have a treat, you do it after a meal. Don't have your sweet treat on its own, and especially on an empty stomach. And that's one thing she talks about too. So we'll talk about the savory breakfast. I will voice over. We're 23 minutes. My breakfast time is about 13. I'll voice over and chit chat. So this is video 1. I have my iceberg. I learned about the iceberg method from Mel Robbins in that coaching program I told you about. What I did is I have written out my glucose hacks. I wrote them all out here in the front. And for each meal, I am going to write down what hack I have used. So for example, the second meal, the second breakfast you're gonna see in this video is the breakfast that I had this morning. And it is, it's 4 o'clock. I am a little hungry now, but I wanted to film this video. I could probably eat, but it was very satiating. And I will share that with you. So I had the savory breakfast, and I also started off with a veggie starter. But I've got my hacks written down, my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Now, this is something that I learned when I did this project with Mel Robbins, when I did the 10 hacks, 1 or more glucose hacks per meal. When I did that project, one thing that Mel Robbins had us do with all of our projects was daily journal about it. And I found that it helped me. If every single day, whatever project you're working on, if it's you're going to be on the treadmill for 30 minutes, like me, I'm using 1 or more glucose hacks per meal every day. And now I'm doing it for 13 weeks. That I was only going to do the 31 days of March, but I have blood work to be done in May. So I'm going to use this all the way through and see what that will do to my A1C numbers. In November, they were at 5.7. We will see what will happen in May after all this time. But a great way to journal, to get your mindset right, and then also to develop the habit. This is how she had us work on all of our projects, and I loved it. And it does help. It helps me remember. Is I ask the question, what is my project? Why is it important to me? And what will I do today? So every day you get a journal, and that's what I will be doing with this book, with my hacks. I answered that question today. So what is my project? My project is to use one or more of the glucose hacks for each meal. Why is it important to me? I need to lower my blood sugar and A1C numbers to prevent damage to my body. I want more energy. I want to be metabolically healthy. I would like to release 20 pounds and keep it off. I am also looking for a sustainable lifestyle approach to eating that I can do for the second half of my life. Excuse me. I want to look and feel my best, and I would like to get stronger. What will I do today? I will food prep lentils. You know what? I didn't get a chance to food prep lentils today, but I did prep veg, and I had a savory breakfast. That is what I'll do. And then as the weeks go on, I will continue to share these. All right, we are going to go into those breakfasts. I will read a couple of excerpts from Jessie's book on savory breakfast, and then also share with you what I was making. So the first breakfast you'll see, I am doing 2 whole eggs with the yolks. I do shiitake mushrooms. I do a serving of those, 1 cup. And then I love to get these prepared meals. I like them for convenience. Let me grab one here. Oh, let me grab 2. I can get these at my local grocer. Now, I have vegetables and I have other food, but sometimes if I'm filming or I'm busy, I love to have these little prepared meals. Now, I won't use the butter in this dish. It's a pesto zucchini noodles. It's delicious. And we save these butters for other things. This morning I had broccolini. The first meal I used this. I put it in my air fryer. So I did food combining with that one. That was in savory breakfast. This morning I did the veggie starter because I specifically ate my broccolini first. Then I got into my omelet and had it that way. I am also going to, I haven't weighed myself in a while. I'm usually about like 153. I'd like to lose 20 pounds. I think for me would be good. Definitely 15 pounds would be so good for my frame. I have spinal fusions. I have degenerative disc issues. That's one thing the neurosurgeon has said to me is watch your weight. It's good for your spine. That's something that I want to work on. What I'll do is I'll start keeping track of my weight and I'll give an average. Weight is kind of one of those things, but I think it will be important to document to see if my body will release weight. That can be a side effect, if you will, of lowering and balancing glucose. So that is what I'll do, and I hope to have good success with this. I've done it before. I've never done it this long before, and I am excited. All right, until the next video, bye. All right, well, while you are watching me prepare my first breakfast, I had this earlier in the week. This is that shiitake mushroom. I did 2 eggs over medium, and then I did the prepared meal of the pesto, Parmesan cheese, spiralized zucchini meal, and I do not put the butter in it. The pesto adds plenty of fat, and the zucchini noodles are quite flavorful. All right, well, I'm going to get ready to read to you an excerpt from the savory breakfast section in the Glucose Revolution, which was Jessie's first book. And on the front cover, it says, "Stop cravings, get your energy back, feel amazing. The life-changing power of balancing your blood sugar," which, of course, one of those hacks is starting off with a savory breakfast. And I am on page 118. and I'm going to read to 119, a couple of paragraphs here. And she says, because of the way we eat today, early morning spikes seem to be the norm, whether it's cereal, toast and jam, croissants, granola, pastries, sweet oats, biscuits, fruit juice, Pop-Tarts, fruit smoothies, acai bowls, or banana bread. The typical breakfast in Western countries is composed of mostly starch and sugar, a ton of glucose and fructose. It's a common assumption that eating something sweet for breakfast is a good thing because it will give us energy. That's what I thought growing up when I spread Nutella on a crepe each morning. But that's actually not correct. Though eating something sweet will give us pleasure, it's not the best way to give us energy. Why? Well, as you know, when we eat glucose, we trigger insulin production. Insulin wants to protect us from the onslaught of glucose, so it removes it from circulation. So instead of the newly digested molecules staying around in our system to be used for fuel, they are stored away as glycogen or fat. Scientific experiments confirm this. If you compare two diets, the one with more carbohydrates leads to less available circulating energy post-digestion. More carbs for breakfast means less available for energy. So you can see here I am mixing up the pesto and just trying to incorporate that pesto into the noodles. And I'm not normally one for warmed tomatoes. I've been trying to get used to eating cooked tomatoes. I really like sun-dried tomatoes. And these aren't so bad. It's still not really my favorite, but the Parmesan cheese with the pesto on the zucchini noodles, absolutely a delicious meal. And the shiitakes, I had my husband pick some up from Costco so I could give them a try, and I really enjoyed them. So I took one of those butters that went with the zucchini and put it with those mushrooms, and it's like a salted butter with parsley and obviously other seasonings. Tastes like there's garlic in there. Not really sure what's all in there, but it's quite delicious. And I love the air fryer. It cooks food perfectly. It was just wonderful. It's one of my favorite kitchen appliances. While we continue to watch me make breakfast, I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from the Glucose Goddess Method. Now, Jessie wrote that book because after her first book, The Glucose Revolution, people were just flooding her inbox with requests for her to move in with them and help them figure out how to incorporate all these hacks so that they could lower their glucose levels. And that's what prompted her to write this book. This book is a workbook. You can write into it. It gives a refresher course over the hacks and why lowering our glucose spike is important. Then there are a whole bunch of recipes, and I look forward to trying some of those recipes. I'm going through this book real time as I go through this 13-week challenge to myself. So I will let you know how it goes, and I'll also record some of that. But she has a list, and it's on page 42, how to make a savory breakfast. And she says, number one, they're all built around protein. Protein is the centerpiece of a savory breakfast. It's what keeps you steady, full, and satiated. Your glucose levels love protein. Take your pick: Greek yogurt, tofu, meat, cold cuts, fish, cheese, cream cheese, protein powder, nuts, nut butter, seeds, and yes, eggs. Scrambled, fried, poached, boiled. So I like that. Eggs are one of my favorite foods. Secondly, they contain fat. Scramble your eggs in butter or olive oil and add slices of avocado or 5 almonds, chia seeds or flax seeds to your Greek yogurt. Skip fat-free yogurt and switch to 5% Greek yogurt. Fat is very important and not to be feared. If you have questions about fat and heart health, she's got a section in the Glucose Revolution book, her first book, on chapter 7 about that. Thirdly, they contain fiber when possible. It could be challenging to include fiber in the morning because it means eating vegetables for breakfast. and as a side note, that's something I'm working on. As you see right here, I've got the mushrooms, and then I've got the veggie starter with, actually this one I did not eat the vegetables first. I kind of did a food combining here. I did a savory breakfast, but I did food combining. In the second breakfast, you'll see I did a veggie starter. I ate the broccolini first before I ate the protein and fat. And this meal was very delicious, by the way. So fiber, I'm learning how to eat vegetables for breakfast. It's different, but it's also tasty. It can be challenging to include fiber in the morning because it means eating veggies for breakfast. I don't blame you if you aren't into that, but if you can, do it. And then she says, I love mixing spinach into my scrambled eggs. And you'll see right here, I am prepping. I love to make an egg scramble, or an egg omelet, with spinach and Parmesan cheese and sriracha. It's one of my favorite meals. You could also take your spinach and tuck it under avocado on toast. Any vegetable will do, from spinach, mushrooms, tomatoes, zucchini, artichoke, sauerkraut, lentils, or lettuce. Oh, and that's also a great thing about beans too, that she says is beans, although a carb, they're not the same. They don't spike our glucose levels because of the fiber and the protein. So that's good to know. So breakfasts are built around protein, fat, fiber. They don't contain anything sweet except whole fruit. That is just for flavor. If you enjoy it, it's not necessary. No dried fruit or fruit juices, no honey or agave or other sugars. If you've got to ask whether something is okay, it probably isn't. But remember, you can eat sweet foods the rest of the day, just not for breakfast. Now, what I did was I had a grapefruit at the end of this meal, but I had it at the very end, and it was I had all the fiber and everything in it too, and it was very delicious. And I did not add sugar to it like I used to when I was a kid. When I was a kid, we would cut grapefruits in half, and you'll see how I cut it and section it, and then you eat it with a spoon. And I used to grow up and have sugar on that, but I don't anymore. And it was very tasty. I thought it was delicious. And then finally in this list, they contain optional starches, such as bread or potatoes or tortilla for flavor if your taste buds want them. So that's really reasonable. And then she says here, how to know if you're doing it right. An important rule of thumb that will tell you if your savory breakfast is working its magic on your glucose levels is if it keeps you full for hours. If you have breakfast at 8 a.m., you shouldn't feel hungry until noon. That's longer than you would expect, but that's what to aim for. She says if you're feeling hungry before that, up the quantity of your breakfast. You can double or triple your breakfast recipe or combine several breakfast options into one. Most people find that hitting this objective requires them to eat more for breakfast than they ever had before, and that's a good thing. As you start building savory breakfast into your life, you should feel that you don't have any more cravings in the morning. And this breakfast kept me full for hours. But you might still have some in the afternoon or the evening. Don't try to resist them. Eat what you are craving. Second, have a look at your lunch and dinner. Inspire yourself from the main dishes. And she's got dishes in here. Here I am cutting that grapefruit. This is how I used to eat it as a child, minus the sugar. It was very delicious. In the Glucose Goddess Method book, there are questions from the community. Someone asks, what time should I eat breakfast? And the answer to that is any time that works for you. What about coffee and tea? And Jessie says, all good. They're absolutely fine to have during the method, meaning the Glucose Goddess Method, because this book is set up for a 4-week challenge, so they're calling it the method. I'm doing mine for 13 weeks. You can have them before your breakfast, during, or after, as long as you're not adding sugar or honey in them. In terms of milks, the least good option for your glucose is oat milk. Try to avoid it if you can. If you can't, that's okay. So I do appreciate that there's a little bit of flexibility in here. It's not so strict. Should I have the same breakfast every day or change it up? And Jessie says, whatever you prefer. In my study, half of the people found that they liked and stuck to it every day and have changed it up. I tend to do that. I will go through different breakfasts. I go through egg omelet crazes, if you want to call it that. And sometimes I will do Greek yogurt. In fact, tomorrow I'm going to do a Greek yogurt and berry and pumpkin seed breakfast. I love to drink the Waterloos, any sparkling water, any zero sugar sparkling water. I love to have those with my meal. I've gotten quite accustomed to them. I started drinking the sugar-free sparkling waters at the beginning of 2023. I had never had them before, but I have become quite fond of them. And now I don't mind them if I have something salty. I had my coffee earlier in the morning, so that's why I was having that drink now. And this breakfast was quite delicious. I enjoyed it very much. All right, well, until the next video, bye-bye.